who was wrongly accused and imprisoned for 14 years. During his time in prison, his elder friend educates him about the incredible treasure hidden on the island. After escaping from the prison, Edmund seeks revenge against those who wronged him and assumes the identity of a wealthy and respected person in their region. Edmund was wrongfully jailed in the fearsome Château d'If, which probably was the worst prison in France. It is in the middle of an ocean, with no possibility to escape. There, he makes friends with a priest named Faria, who was also imprisoned. Both of them has made plans to escape from the prison. However, Faria died unexpectedly, and Edmund had no option but to find a way to get out of this prison by himself. Edmund got a brilliant idea when he came to know that Priest Faria's body is sewn up in a sack and has been kept in a dungeon. Edmund realizes that this is probably his only chance to escape if he can manage to hide the dead body and set himself in the sack in place of Faria's body. It was not as easy as he thought, but the ambition to get out of this horrible place motivated Edmund, and he managed to hide the body and crawls into the sack and sews up its mouth. Now then, Edmund has somehow managed to swap himself with the dead body, but the real challenge has just begun. He had to stay there without any movement until he has been disposed out of the prison. He was literally suffocating inside the sack. He was sweating all over his body, and as the time went by, his condition was getting even worse in that confined and suffocating sack. The slow hours has passed in fear and suspense. After a long wait, Edmund heard the footsteps of the guards in far distance. Could this be the moment? Is my time for escape finally at hand? Edmund thrilled with the thought. He gathered all his courage and breathed as slowly as he could. The footsteps stopped at the door. Edmund guessed that there must be at least 2 guards there. The door opens, and a ray of a dim light reached Edmund's eyes through the coarse sack. He saw 2 shadows making arrangement to carry the dead body. Soon they hold and lift the sack in which Edmund was hiding. One of the guards doubted that the sack is heavy for the old and thin priest. But the other ignores him and asks him to confirm if he had tied the knot. Tied a knot? What for? Edmund thought in horror. He thought about something being taken place, which he had not considered. The guards then placed the body on a frame. Edmund made his body as stiff as he could in order to play a role of a dead man. All of a sudden, he felt the fresh chilled air, and that made him delighted with the thought of freedom. The guards moved few steps further and then stopped there again. Edmund felt something like a heavy metal ball placed beside him. Soon, a cord was fastened to his feet. Edmund shivered in fear. He realized that a heavy metal ball has been tied with his body in order to sink him in the sea water. Well, he got relieved a bit as he had taken a knife with himself. The guards took him a few steps further ahead, and then they opened the gate again. Edmund heard the noise of the waves smashing against the rocks on the base of the prison. The guards climbed a few steps up, and then hold Edmund's body by its feet and head. Count of 3. And Edmund feels himself being flung into a vast emptiness. Terrible cry escaped from his mouth, but it was lost in the noise of water. He hit the icy chilled water, and he felt as if his heart stopped ticking for a moment. Falling from that height made Edmund sink deep into the water. He was feeling a terrible pain in his entire body. He was suffocating inside the water. Moreover, the heavy weight pulling him further down. Edmund realized that he could not hold his breath furthermore. He quickly cut the sack open with the help of the knife. He then bit down under the waves, and with the supreme efforts, he cut the cord to free himself with the heavy weight. With a strong kick, he rose above the surface of the water to take a much-needed breath. However, he was aware of the danger of being seen by the guards, and soon dived deep below the water again. Luckily, the weather was not good that day, and the guards were not stayed there after throwing the body. When Edmund rose above the water second time, he was slightly far from the prison. Above him was the dark black sky, and around him was the vast expanse of water, whose waves were roaring as if there was a storm coming in. He realized that it was important for him to strike out to sea, away from the prison. As he planned, he had to swim towards the Tibulan Island, which was the nearest inhabited island from the prison. A lighthouse from the island of Planier had helped him to find the direction. But the sea was rough and the weather was windy. It slowed him down, and even after continuously swimming for a long time, he did not see any sign of a land. What if I lost my way? A shudder passed over him. However, the thought of his escape from the living death of the terrible prison boosted his spirit, and he continued swimming with all his energy, forgetting the terrible pain and tiredness. He swam almost for an hour. Suddenly, the sky seemed to become more darker, and the black clouds seemed to come down upon him. At the same time, he felt a sharp pain in his feet. He got injured by a sharp rock. He finally reached the island of Tibulan. With a prayer of gratitude, he stretched himself on the edge of the rocky island. The rough surface of the rock felt like smoother than the softest bed he ever slept on. Within a second, he fell into the deep and sound sleep in spite of the adverse conditions around.